Hello, UAE startups. What a pleasure to connect and be part of this innovative journey of yours. Working in collaboration with AIM, Bedayat brings to you a webinar to help you better prepare for the UAE Startup Roadshow. Bedayat is a business incubator certified by Dubai SME. We welcome startups with ideas, innovations, and technologies that contribute to social, environmental, and economic sustainability. We're located in the multiple award-winning community called the Sustainable City, which is the first net zero energy community in Dubai. Using a three-step process, we will teach you how to successfully pitch your idea in 5 minutes. First, we will show you a simple way to validate your business idea and streamline your business model. Second, we will highlight the elements that support any sustainable business, including how to approach a circular economy. Third, we will explain how a virtual pitch is different from a face-to-face one and how you should prepare to deliver a smooth virtual presentation in just 5 minutes. For more information about Bedayat, please follow us on social media.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to all attendees of the virtual mentoring session for the AIM UAE Startup Roadshow, which will be provided by Bedayat Sustainable City. My name is Karen, and I will be your host for today's event. As we all know, the platform was originally scheduled to be held in March as a physical competition and was since postponed due to COVID-19 pandemic outbreak and the nationwide lockdown. AIM will now be delivered to our global audience digitally on the 20th to 22nd of October. AIM, short for the Annual Investment Meeting, is the largest investment platform in the world. As an initiative of the UAE Ministry of Economy, AIM has been promoting a healthier global economy by linking investment opportunities to fast-growing economies under several key pillars: foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, small and medium enterprise, future cities, a One Belt, One Road special event, and a startups, which is our key focus for today. We're excited to learn more once again the pointers a startup has to keep in mind before presenting their ideas to various investors and learning how to showcase their company's products and solutions as they compete for a chance to represent UAE at the final AIM 2020 Global Startups Champion League in Dubai later this year. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. If you experience any issues with your audio or video during the webinar, just refresh your browser and that should take care of everything. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please do feel free to post any questions in the chat box, as we will have a Q&A round with our speaker and special guest at the end of the presentation. Today, we are joined once again by Mr. Karim El-Jizer, Chief Sustainability Officer of Social Diamond Developers at the Sustainable City, with combined expertise in resource management, climate change, and urban development. And after 20 years in conservation management, he shifted his attention to making cities and communities more livable and climate-proof. And he is based in the Sustainable City in Dubai, an award-winning master plan community where he manages a global platform for advancing knowledge and sustainability and the built environment. Once again, Mr. Karim, the stage is yours. Welcome.
Hello, Karen. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Most welcome.
Second opportunity to share some insights and hopefully say something useful and constructive that's going to motivate a new round of startups ahead of their pitch later this week. So this is addressed to you, startups in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, and other Emirates, participating with AIM Startup and the Ministry of Economy. We're very pleased to be with you today. And so, yes, my name is Karim El-Jizer. I am a resident of Sustainable City, and I work with Diamond Developers. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer. And I'll be sharing a deck of slides with you today in the next, which will span the next 30 to 35 minutes. And then we have time to take your questions. So anything that comes to mind, take a note and please write those questions as per the housekeeping rules that were just shared with you. And to get started, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to make sure that it is visible to everyone. Karen?
Yes, it's very visible.
All right, I'm just going to
do
do this and just show the entire screen. I'm just trying to show the entire screen. Here we go. Great. Here we go. All right, so here we go. AIM Startup, this is the first mentoring session. Do reach out if you need more guidance or more information. So what you're going to learn today, I'm going to follow a three-step process. One is introducing you to the golden circle, which is very helpful to validate your business idea. And this is something you can do ahead of your pitch. Number two, we're going to talk about how to build a sustainable business. There are many businesses in the world. The vast majority are not sustainable. If you want to stand out, you better focus on a sustainable business. And number three, we're going to give you simple tips for an impactful and virtual pitch, because you have one opportunity, you have 5 minutes, and we want you to make the best of it. So let us start with the golden circle. And to those of you who may not be familiar with the golden circle, this is a concept which was coined by Simon Sinek, and this was about 11 years ago. And he is a researcher and best-selling author. And he actually put that on, it was the focus of one of his TED Talks in 2009, which became one of the most popular TED Talks, most watched TED Talks in history, with more than 50 million views. So what am I talking about? Well, when you have a business idea and you're going to pitch it to your friends, to your colleagues, and then to the jury as well, it is important that you keep this in mind: the why, the how, and the what. Now, historically, most of us have focused on the what. You know, I have a solution, I have a product, I have a service. And then I explain how the service comes about or how the product is manufactured. And then I just expect, we expect someone to just buy into it, right? Because it's a great product, and so people will automatically show interest and buy into it. That is not enough today. So today we want you to start from the center, from the heart, the why, and then move out to how and what. And this is because when you're building a business model, you want to make sure that you succeed, right? You're designing a business for success, and you want the success to be long lasting. The majority of businesses do not achieve success. And those who achieve success do not achieve, only few achieve long-lasting success. So we want you to be at the tip of that iceberg, which is successful and long-lasting. And really everything starts with the why. And when we talk about why am I doing this? So why am I in this business? You really need to answer the question, and you have to be convincing. You have to be truthful and honest as well. And the why is not about making money. Ultimately, all businesses, unless they're not businesses, should make money, but that is not the purpose. This is not the core belief that you want to share. So when you're out developing your idea and pitching it to people and to colleagues and the jury, you really want to focus on, why do I exist? And what gets you going in the morning? What is the excitement? What's that itchy sensation that you have that you really want to get out there and you want to release into the market? So the why is really that motivation, the belief that you can make a difference and you want to make a difference. It's got to motivate, and it's got to be celibate, and it's got to be a belief that you can also spread to the rest of the world. There has to be a ripple effect. So that belief of yours, which drives you in the morning, is the belief that you have to convey in your pitch as well. So the goal is not to sell what people need or what people want to have. The goal is to sell what you want them to believe, right? You have to sell to people what you want them to believe in. So that's really critical. It's the core, it's the belief, it's the conviction that you bring to the table. Once you've established that, you can move on to the how. And the how is really, how do you go about making your solution or your product and service? And how touches also goes to the core values of your entity and startup company to be. As a startup, you really want to differentiate yourself. And this is where you can differentiate yourself when you focus on the how. If you do not differentiate yourself in the how, most likely you're going to be like the rest of the pack. And remember, there are so many ideas and so many businesses ahead of you already out in the market. So you must have a strong belief, that's the why, and you must have a clear and unique how. This is the journey. And then ultimately, you have a product. And that product is what you want to sell. And this is what organizations perfect. Most organizations, they go straight to the what. This is the product, this is the service, just run with it. Big or small, all companies focus on the what. However, in your case, you must make sure that before you reach the what, you've started with a proper purpose, a conviction and a belief, a very unique journey, and then you show us the product, the what. So always start in the middle, start in the why, move out to how you want to do it and what you want to do. In many ways, why is a belief, how are the actions that you need to take to realize that belief, and what are the results of those actions. So that's what you're going to see on the shelf. That's the product at the end of the day. Now, there are many great examples of people who have followed this, and I'm going to share with you two examples. Let's take the first one of Tom's shoes. And so some of you may know what the Tom's shoes are. And those were designed by a certain Blake Mycoskie, and he was actually traveling in Argentina on a trip. And then he noticed and he realized that many kids do not have proper footwear. They don't have shoes because of poverty. And if they don't have shoes, they cannot stay in the street too long. They cannot walk to school. They might miss out on education. And there are so many societal consequences and impacts for not wearing a pair of shoes. And this really motivated him. And this was his belief. And he decided then to set up a company to manufacture shoes, primarily for children. And with each pair of shoe that he would sell to you and me as consumers, one pair of shoe would be donated to those needy people, children in Argentina. So his why was to improve children's lives. The how was to create a for-profit business that promotes corporate responsibility and conscious consumerism. And thirdly, selling the shoes became the what, and that's what you buy. And eventually his business expanded into a multi-million-dollar business, and now they also provide shoes for adults. Another example is no other than Apple. So most of us have Apple devices near us in our lives, at school, at work, iPad, iPhones, etc. And that's just the product. But Apple did not grow to this multi-billion, almost $1 trillion company today simply by having a nice product. It actually started with a why. And the why, the conviction of Apple, is to challenge status quo. So their whole purpose, their whole ideology, philosophy is to challenge status quo and make youth challenge status quo as well. And so how is designing beautiful products. And how do they design those beautiful products? In many different ways. And then ultimately, what is that earphone, earset, iPhone, iPad, which ends up on the shelf, and then you can buy it and you can become a proud owner of it. But remember, it starts with, why did Apple go about designing these products in the first place? Because they wanted to challenge status quo. So these are two great stories and more to come. And we hope that you're going to be the next one as well. And with that, I'm now going to move into how do you plan for a sustainable and profitable business? We want you to differentiate yourselves from the rest of the pack, most of whom are maybe profitable, but are certainly not sustainable. So we want you to be profitable and sustainable. And before I get into how we do so, how we can help you, it's important to understand a bit the current state of affairs. So unfortunately, since the the Industrial Revolution of about 200 years ago. And since that time, we've noticed an increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations and with a consequent impact on climate change. In those 200 years, our approach has been really very linear, which means we take something from the environment, we extract it, we process it, we manufacture, and then we sell it to people who consume it and then get rid of it. So this take, make, waste philosophy is what we call the linear economy. And that linear economy is credited that exponential growth in wealth across the world, maybe not even, but certainly exponential wealth across the world. It was very simple. We extract, we make, we consume, and we throw. And that's the old way, and this is the obsolete way, which is going to break the planet. And it is therefore absolutely important that all of you individually, whatever you plan to pitch this week and beyond, that you think in a circular manner. So how can I start from a certain idea? How can I follow pathways which go back to the beginning? And there are many ways of doing so. Let us summarize the philosophy behind a circular pathway. And this slide was actually developed by a very well-reputed and established organization called the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And you can look them up, and they have great knowledge products and publications. In this slide, they summarize what is a circular economy. On the right side, we look at the products and the assets and the things that we manufacture. On the left side, we look at the energy flows and the resources in the environment. In both cases, we want to achieve that circular flow. If you start from the top and you look at this tractor or dumpster, which is transporting material. And as we said, materials are not infinite anymore. Perhaps we thought so 200 years ago, but now we know that all resources from coal to lithium and oil are finite resources. Well, when those are extracted and we manufacture something and then we develop the product and then we pass it on to service providers and then we use them and then ultimately we're going to collect it. Now, typically in the past, after collection, this would end up in a landfill, perhaps some dismantling facility. But how about we design products and you design products which invite more sharing? Can these products be shared somehow? Can we prolong the useful life of these products? Can we reuse and redistribute these products? Can we refurbish and remanufacture these products? Can we recycle these products? And those are not questions that you should address after you finalize your idea and your product. Those are questions you must address from the very beginning because you have to design for this. Otherwise, your product will become obsolete. And in fact, many of the great industries around the world have developed great products, but they've also designed for obsolescence, which means that the product is actually gonna crash or die before its intended useful life. And that is simply to encourage you to replace and to buy more. Back to the linear model. No, we need a circular model. On the left side, we look at different flows in the environment. Whenever we get rid of something, we don't really get rid of it. You know, it's gonna stay in the environment somewhere. So we need to think what went into the product. Can I disaggregate those materials? Can I transform it into something? Can I produce biogas? Can I make a biochemical feedstock? And so on and so forth. So you need to think of the product itself, and you need to think of the nutrients and the minerals and the energy flows in the process. And by combining all of this, we can move away from a linear economy to a circular economy. Now, there are many benefits to going sustainable, and we can spend hours and days and weeks to talk about the benefits of sustainability. But I'm going to first say and re-emphasize that you can distinguish yourself by going sustainable and really embracing sustainability and making that a core value in your company. So there are many benefits, but we chose to perhaps focus on 6 benefits: from new sources of revenue, new customers, you can tap into new customers, you can reduce your costs, your manufacturing costs, you can also follow an innovative approach, and that will help you build a brand as well. And then you can also secure your supply chain by being more sustainable. We need to think, pre-COVID, post-COVID, perhaps we have to adopt or adapt to a new normal. So this is something you too must keep in mind. So let us take them one by one. From new sources of revenue, I'm going to stay here. So when we talk about new sources of revenue, it is important that you realize how you're going to position yourself. The market is really crowded already. The UAE market, the GCC market, the Levant market, the Asian market. So if you try to tap into new and more sustainable and less competitive industries, chances are that you're going to have a new audience and it's going to be less congested than the conventional market. So you really need to explore those new revenue sources. Let me give you a couple of examples. For example, in energy. So many industries are still very conventional and traditional, focusing on fossil fuels and related industries. But what if you focus on renewable energy, which is exploding? It is going through quantum development, not incremental, but quantum development. So solutions in the wind and the thermal and the biomass and solar energy, all of that is happening around us. And all of these systems can benefit from additional services, additional devices, additional hardware, additional software. And that will definitely make you stand out from the pack. Another example is in the food industry. So most of us still think, conventional farming, perhaps less so in the UAE, but once we move north and east and west, we see conventional farming and large irrigated fields. Well, if we want to adapt to a changing climate and to hot climates, we have to also consider urban farming. And urban farming today is going through a transformation because it has started to embrace and perfect indoor vertical farming, IVF. Indoor vertical farming can produce so much more with so much less resources and inputs. Be it soil, because you can grow food soilless, or water. You can actually reduce water consumption by 90 to 95% by going indoors and vertical. In the textile and fashion industry, we are all a prey to fast fashion. Fast fashion has colonized the world, which means we have to replace our shirts and our suits and our t-shirts because that's the trend and there is so much more coming our way. Well, all of that is unsustainable. And much of what we purchase actually ends up in landfills and open dump sites. So we really need to think about, textile and fashion. Where is that fashion industry going? Interestingly, there is so much green fashion now entering the market, and big names as well. Some names have really stood out by going green, by being sustainable, by engaging people, by reducing the use of natural resources, and by switching to biodegradable fabrics and biodegradable dyes. One such company is by the name of Patagonia, and Patagonia is also a region in Latin America, which is famed for mountain climbing and for trekking. And now they really stand out because they have this brand. In the water industry and the mobility industry, we are going green, electrification, micro-mobility. In waste management, how do we reduce our waste stream? How do we turn waste into a resource again? And in materials, if you think about construction materials in the building industry, so much is happening there as well in terms of UV reflective paint, low carbon materials, in terms of mimicking nature, and that's called biomimicry. How can you incorporate some of nature's wonders and features into your building fabric? All of that is happening around us, but perhaps this only makes up 5% of the industry today. So you need to tap into it to stand out and to make your business grow. So that was the first item, new sources of revenue. When you build on that, such as Patagonia and others, you can tap into unserved or underserved customers. Remember, there are 7.6 billion people on the planet. We're going to add another 2.5 billion people net over the next 30 years. So that's by 2050. So you don't need to sell your product to the same people. Think of new markets and new people. And so by exploring new industries, you'll be addressing the needs of people who have either been priced out of existing product offers or whose needs have not been met at all, such as the shoes in Argentina, right, for children. So you really need to think who needs what and how can I position myself and be the first one to deliver. Number three is about lowering your cost. Do not, and I say it again, do not equate sustainability with luxury or sustainability for the rich. We need to make sustainability accessible to everybody across the board, across the planet. And so if you really consider the resources that go into your production line, you will be able to identify opportunities to reduce the capex and eventually also the opex. I'll give you a few examples. So what if within your facility, your manufacturing industry or plant, you're able to incorporate renewable energy so that you depend less on the utility and produce some of that energy that you need in-house yourself. This is a perpetual saving. It's a one-time investment, and then you just reap the benefits of unlimited resources. Hence, we call them renewable resources for as long as you are in the industry. Also, avoid waste. Waste is money. So you can avoid waste by reducing, by reusing, by recycling. So much innovation can get into the production system so that you reduce your costs. Be innovative. And we are all fortunate to live in the UAE because the UAE has really embraced innovation at all levels and in all segments of society. Innovation in education, innovation in governance, innovation in the building industry, in PropTech. So it is really important that you also embrace innovation in as many ways as you can. Be the first ones, be the first movers. Is this better? I was told that I was a little bit off the camera. And so innovation is really a currency today. In many ways, try to innovate in your thinking, in your production, and chances are you're going to find something very interesting along the way. Number five, it is important, and you really need to think about your reputation. Today, the world is connected, and the millennials, the generations X, Y, and Z, they have their own ways, and they are very tech savvy, and they follow you in the media. And if you have a social media presence, those people can either make or break your business. It's very important that you go back to your why, that you remain faithful to your why, so that you can really build followers and supporters. And this is how you can craft your reputation and maintain your reputation. Remember, social media, it can really embellish you. And if you have a few nasty comments on social media which go viral, it can really bring you down. So you have to be very attentive to what you stand for, who you stand for, and how you reach out to your clients. So by embracing also the principles of social fairness within the company, you can lead to lower turnover, which means these people, they stay with you because they believe in your product. And lastly, number six, it is also about securing your supply chain. And there's been a lot of concern in the supply chain in the last few months due to COVID and COVID impacting logistics. So it is important that you consider that supply chain, that you have some plan Bs in case your supply is disrupted. Where do your raw material come from? Where do your components come from? You really have to pay attention to those. In case of a disruption, you're able to bypass and sustain your operation. All of these are just a very light selection of benefits if you pivot from a regular business to a sustainable business. And we can teach you how to achieve this and how to walk the talk here at Bedayat Business Incubator in the Sustainable City. And why am I saying so? Because the Sustainable City was very much based also on experiences, on lessons learned. We traveled around the world to understand how can we bring sustainability into one space. So there's a lot of learning, and that learning will continue and stay with you. All right, so now we're going to talk about a scorecard. So as you continue to perfect and develop your idea, please keep this in mind. This is a 5-step process, which we call the sustainability scorecard, which will guide your business model. And if you follow those, then chances are you will be ahead of the curve. Let's start with number one, non-toxic inputs. A lot of what we do today, a lot of what we consume today, a lot of what we wear today, and a lot of what we use today contains toxic chemicals. There's a lot of toxicity out there which has been brought into our living space and into organisms, living organisms, and our bodies are exposed to more and more toxins every day, every week, and every month. It is argued that newborn babies already have been exposed to about 200 toxins by the time they are born and a few weeks old because of what the mother or the father have ingested, and this was just transmitted and passed on. So it is really important that you keep that in mind, even if you source beautiful components and materials from other countries, from any country, you name it, doesn't have to be China, can be Africa, could be anywhere, could be Egypt. It is important that you pay attention to those chemicals because they have a direct impact on our health. So do you know what materials your product is made of? You should know that. Do you know where they come from? You should ask those questions. And do you know if they are recycled, recyclable, or biodegradable? So these are questions for you to keep in mind as you venture in your production. Number two, you want to choose materials which are durable, reusable. So this category aims to eliminate the concept of waste, right? You don't want to design something which is going to become wasteful. How long do you expect your product to last? How can you make it more durable by switching to other materials? What should the consumer do with the product at the end of his life? Can we return it and have it replaced? Do I dismantle it? Do I sell it? Can it be upcycled, which means you have a product and then you upcycle it to something else. You don't recycle it, you upcycle it, you bring more value to the supply chain. That's number two. Let's continue the scorecard. Then we get to renewable energy, which is probably one, but not the one of the most important features and elements of any business and startup today. The world is heating up. Global temperature has already increased by more than 1.1 degree compared to pre-industrial temperatures, and that is because of man-made emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, and most of those emissions come from energy. So if you're able to consider renewable energy in your production, in your supply chain, in your distribution chain, if you're able to design for a low carbon product, a low carbon solution, chances are you're gonna also have a nice lead with your competition. So where is your product manufactured, under what conditions? If it is outsourced, try to look, explore, discuss with your subcontractors and vendors, do they rely on any renewable energy source? Can you plug renewable energy into that production? And what is the total amount of CO2 or greenhouse gases emitted during construction? Today, that can be quantified. We envision a future, next time you buy a cell phone or you buy a mouse or any other object, not only going to have a price tag on it, but you're also going to have a CO2 tag on it. So a greenhouse gas carbon tag on it. So that labeling, the carbon labeling is coming. So you need to think about it and perhaps, be ahead of the curve and start carbon labeling your products and services. And that again is going to impact your reputation and your positioning. In the same spirit of energy, we should also consider water. The UAE is a very water poor country. We rely almost exclusively on desalination, which means seawater is converted to fresh water by injecting a lot of energy. It is a very energy intensive process. So again, you must consider water conservation, water management, and we call that water stewardship in your production. You have to reduce, just like the energy and carbon footprint, you must also commit to reducing your water footprint. And lastly, we need to talk about social fairness. So was your process implemented in total fairness towards the people involved? Is there any sweatshops involved? Are people duly compensated? Do they work under fair conditions in the UAE and beyond? And we really have to think beyond. The old saying that out of sight is out of mind is not true anymore. Out of sight, out of mind, or out of sight becomes in mind, and you really have to consider what people may hear about the product and the services that you offer. So you also have to take steps, active steps. You have to be proactive to ensure basic human rights are respected and that you've protected your employees against discrimination. So that is a scorecard. It is really simple. You can apply it. We can spend hours on it. But if you keep that in mind before your pitch and during the pitch, again, chances are you're going to do a better job. And with that, I would like to explain to you how we incorporate sustainability at Bedayat in your business. And Bedayat, as you know, means the beginnings in Arabic. Bedayat. So for us, we go back to sustainable business planning. And from a sustainable business planning, from the very early stages, we will assign to you a coach and a mentor. A coach is someone who really understands your industry, the textile industry, the ICT industry, the food industry, etc. A mentor is someone who's going to push you along that journey and keep you on track. You don't want to spend too much time to delve into your ideas because you might lose steam, you might lose interest. You really have to build that momentum, and you have to ride the wave. So you have to also create that wave, which is going to push you along. So we have the sustainability scorecard, at the heart of the process. It's going to support business planning. It's going to support coaching. And then from coaching, also, we're able to invite you at Bedayat, because of its location in the sustainable city, we invite you to implement a pilot project. And a pilot project is really about you demonstrating on a small scale and convincingly to us, to yourself, that your product and solution works, has merit. And this is really about not doing too much early on. It's about minimizing the resources that are needed to demonstrate and to get traction. We at the Sustainable City, we can accommodate you in many cases, depending on what industry. If you have a different product that you want to deploy, you want to interview people, you want to engage people, you want to get feedback, you want to measure, test, monitor, all of that can be done. So a pilot project is in your favor. If you can demonstrate your product and in the form of a pilot project, this will also give you a leg up. And the coaching process will continue, and so will the mentorship. And between those, we're also going to sprinkle additional information where you're going to have access to a virtual startup library. And we also have guest lecturers who step in currently virtually, in the future in person again. And they offer insights into different industries such as social media, marketing, business development, IP, etc. After all of that, and as your idea develops, and again, at the end of a pilot project, this is really where you need to decide, should I pivot or should I quit? And that's a critical decision. It's a critical pathway. You don't want to be bleeding resources and energy for too long. You want to be able to make that decision early on in the process. And after that, we're going to invite you to an exit review, and we're going to go over all that progress and your idea. And then, you will graduate, and we will wish you good luck. So this is a process that we follow at Bedayat, and at the heart of it, again, is the sustainability scorecard. And we also use different approaches along the way, such as the lean startup approach, which is inspired by lessons from lean manufacturing. And second, the lean canvas, which is an effective business plan template that helps to deconstruct a business idea into its key assumptions. Great. So now we talked about the golden circle, we talked about sustainability and business planning. Now we're going to prepare you for your pitch next week. So how do you present like a pro? Now, most of us for many years have been presenting at school, university, on the job, etc., to people. But in the past couple of years, there has been increased attention and interest in the online world. And this has grown exponentially since COVID in the last 6 to 9 months. And so luckily, or perhaps unluckily, I'm going to say that you have now the opportunity to pitch online. So that is different from an in-person presentation in some ways, but you still need to follow the same rules. So we have virtual presentations and we have in-person presentations. So a virtual presentation, because you're not sitting in front of those people who can intimidate you, and many of us, we have a stage fright. And when I'm sitting here talking to you, I haven't met you, so I'm just looking at a screen, and I'm assuming that you are listening to me and that you find this interesting. But we never really know unless we establish an eye contact. But think of it this way: a virtual presentation whereby you're speaking to the camera in front of a screen, is very much like taking a flight, and the most difficult on an airplane. And the most difficult segments of that flight is really the takeoff and the landing. So at the beginning of your pitch and at the end of the pitch, you really want to make an impression, a lasting impression. And let's see how. 5 simple things to keep in mind. Less is more. Don't say too much. Focus on key messages first. You don't want to be 3 minutes into your 5-minute pitch and you haven't yet communicated your key message. Key messages first. That's the takeoff. Keep it simple and coherent throughout. Use visuals, because a picture is 1,000 words, but don't make it too crowded. Use visuals very judiciously, and then choose your font wisely and the background wisely as well. Nothing too busy. Remember, you're talking to a jury and to other people, and you don't really see them. During those 5 minutes, it is important that you know your numbers. Don't throw too many numbers at me. That's confusing. But just the actual figures of where you are. And then build on that to show some forecasts. I am here. Be honest, be transparent, and this is my forecast. This is where I want to be. Be realistic. Do not overpromise, because that sometimes can sound fake. Don't overpromise, but do have an ambitious forecast. Talk about financing if you want to address that subject. Expected return on the investment. How to value your product and your business. All of those, keep them in mind during those 5-minute pitch. Now, it is important that you know the rules. So this has been a journey for you. You've joined the competition. This is a mentorship session. You're going to pitch. There's going to be Q&A at the end of that pitch. Listen to other speakers as well. And then eventually the winner is going to be announced by AIM Startups. How many minutes? You have 5 minutes. I have now spent 35 minutes, almost 40 minutes. So you have only 5 minutes. And this is where you need to convince the jury that you are up for the job, and you're going to get a thumbs up, and eventually you're going to be chosen as the winner. 5 minutes may seem like a long time, but they can also go just like this. So be efficient. There's going to be a timer on the screen. So don't worry, look at your watch, but there's going to be a timer on the screen as well. And then you have 5 minutes for Q&A. Listen to the questions well. They can be simple questions. I don't think you're going to receive any trick questions. Just listen to the question well. If you do not understand the question, just point that out to the jury member, and they're going to rephrase that question. So ultimately, it's 5 plus 5. Now, how to deliver then this virtual presentation? Deliver key messages early. That's your takeoff. Make sure you have a wired connection. I'm looking at my blue cable here on the side. Avoid Wi-Fi because it is less reliable. So try to make sure you have a wired connection. Do expect some technical issues, like the position of the screen. You might lose audio for a few seconds. If that happens, just stay on. Do not panic. Just expect technical issues. You better present from a PDF presentation, because if you have too much animation, sometimes the PowerPoint may also be delayed. So a PDF is the safest option. You want to be in a quiet room. I'm looking around me. This is my office. I close the window. I put a sign outside so people do not walk in. You don't want interruptions in those 10 minutes. These are golden minutes for you. And then you also want to talk not just to the screen, but you want to talk to the camera. You almost want to establish an eye contact with the jury. It may sound difficult, but if you practice, it's going to happen. So if this was face-to-face, it may be more pleasant, but you have an opportunity also to impress by looking into the camera and talking to the jury. Choose a natural background. You can take a recording of your presentation, and then focus when the Q&A comes. Do not start daydreaming. Don't lose focus. You have those 5 minutes. Enjoy those 5 minutes. Lastly, we have 9 tips for you as well. Talk clearly, not too fast. Do not mumble. Do not put your hand in front of your mouth. Speak clearly so it is audible. Use storytelling. If that idea of yours, if the why relates to a story, do share that story as well. Research your audience. That is more applicable when you have a face-to-face audience. In this case, you have jury members representing different organizations who want you to do your best. Use your body language effectively. So depending on the screen, don't move too much. stay stable, back straight. I should sit up this way. Do not rotate on a chair too much, because that's a bit too busy and confusing. So use your body language, even if we can only see the top part. Number 5, you don't want to read from the slides. You really want to talk. You want to talk and present. And you also want to address for success. Don't be too casual. Don't be too formal. Be yourself. Be yourself. And then be mindful of the time, the 5 minutes, and practice, practice, practice before the pitch. And lastly, have fun. We have to have fun in life. And your idea might generate a lot of fun for others as well. But it is important that you have fun. And with that, I leave you with one quote. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. So if you follow the Winter Olympics and you see those people on the ice, and then there is the puck which is moving on the ice. So you have to really plan for where that puck is going to be at the end. Don't aim for where the puck is today. You really have to anticipate the future and be there ahead of the puck. So with that, I say good luck, and I pass it over to Karen again and my colleague Milda for the Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Karim, for your amazing stories, insightful presentation, pointers, and tips. And before we take some questions, Ms. Milda is there. Ms. Milda
Yes.
Burken from she's a business planner and financial analyst. She will be joining us with Mr. Karim. We have a couple of questions. Okay, I think we better start now. We still have enough time. First question, Mr. Karim and Ms. Milda. How do I determine my startup cost and other expenses? Mr. Karim?
Milda?
Milda?
I think the starting point is dividing them into the fixed costs and the variable costs. This is kind of the very, very starting point. You go cost line by cost line. You identify them either as recurring or one-offs, and you divide them into variable and into the fixed costs to be able to business plan into the future. It's a very complex question, and it requires time to do the financial modeling to answer this properly. But the very start is just to first identify them and then put them into categories.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to dissect it. So think of your business as a box. Think of everything that needs to go in the box. Time, your time, other people's time. You need electricity, you need space, you need venue, you need resources, you need website development, you need social media. Think of everything that goes in. These are the inflows, the resources, and those can be monetized. So dissect it, be granular. If you don't know, just identify the item, and eventually with time, you'll be able to put a number next to it.
I would also add that always plan for unexpected costs.
Yeah.
So when doing the financial modeling, be modest on the revenue side and be over ambitious on the cost side. And hopefully eventually you will arrive at more down to earth figure that is more reliable.
There's a saying, expect the unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Moving to second question. How can I determine the perfect location for starting my startup business?
Well, it depends on what you, go ahead, Linda. Go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead.
I'd say it's not so much, it depends, but it's not so much about the location itself, unless you are into tourism, and then it's another story, but it's all about the idea, the why. Why do you want to do what you want to do? What do you believe in? And then, the final product. So unless your product or service is extremely location dependent, I'd say it's secondary to your success.
Yeah.
Mr. Karim?
And of course you have, if the question, I haven't read the question, but the question may relate also to where do I register my business? And this is This can be very confusing to any entity, not only a startup. Even well-established companies have options at their disposal. So if you're based in the UAE, in Dubai, for example, or in Abu Dhabi, you may decide to register your company in a Ras Al Khaimah, or in a free zone, or a non-free zone, or a mainland, or there are many options. And I think it's important from a legal perspective, it's important to understand those variations. You know, what does a free zone give me? What does it not give me? You know, it's not a solution that fits everybody. What does mainland provide? What does mainland in Dubai provide in relation to mainland Abu Dhabi, for example? So in terms of legality, I think it's important to explore several options. And then ultimately we can look at the market itself and say, well, I physically need to be close to my consumer base, which is in the Northern Emirates, for example. But, you know, we are globalizing. Location is becoming less important. Do keep costs in mind. If you have to commute, travel time, fuel, my workers, you know, all my employees also need to go to that location. So you want to, so when it comes to location, you also want to keep cost in mind, resources, and you want to minimize those as we talked about earlier.
All right. Thank you. So we're moving. Actually, the next question is, I think you already covered this. Do you suggest any specific format for this 5-minute speech competition? I think you covered it, right? But you can just.
We covered the tips, right? And in terms of format, I think it's important to balance, you know, the emotional and then the quantitative, right? When you have 5 minutes to influence an audience or a jury, you want to speak to the emotional side of the brain, but you also want to speak to the technical side of the brain and the numbers. And I think it's important to balance those. If you're emotional all the way, I think you will lose your audience, right? It's like, so what? And if you're only technical all the way, you may not get this support, you know, this empathy from the jury. So it's important to balance those two. And we had a slide which talked about the numbers, what kind of numbers to show, but not too many numbers, the visuals, but not too many visuals. So it's really about finding that balance. In terms of slides, so if people are preparing a deck of slides, normally when you present, you can do, like, you say 1 slide per minute. In the case of a pitch, it's faster, it's happening, you know, because it's a pitch. So you could perhaps multiply that by 2 or 3. So I would not exceed 15 slides in 5 minutes.
And practice. Like really 5 minutes, give no room to being spontaneous whatsoever. If you want to make a professional impression, just stand in front of the mirror. You know, you can practice a 5-minute pitch many times over. So this would be like the advice from the heart, like really. And then make sure that you really get your message across, throw in some numbers, as Karin said, and use some storytelling. Explain your why, explain the how, explain the what. I mean, you'll probably not have time to prepare to explain the entire business according to the sustainability scorecard, but it's a plus if you address those issues. And and also do not forget that there is a Q&A after your presentation. So don't relax once you're done with your last slide. Make sure that you also answer all the follow-up questions, and then you're good.
Should be really mentally and emotionally conditioned before doing everything. Absolutely. And Mr. Karim and Ms. Milda, how important for investors to have knowledge of startup team qualification for the business? As you know, it's very important also to have in their presentation the importance of the team.
Good question. So we've seen many startups, you know, walk through our doors at Bedayat, and sometimes we get a very good first impression. Yeah. But when you start scratching the surface a little bit, you feel there is no entity behind. So you may have a brilliant person who owns the idea and the product. But as a jury and for investors, obviously you want to also understand and get a feel for who's supporting. Do you have a support structure? Are you really doing this on your own? That will make me nervous as an investor. So it is important to convey, you don't need to have the perfect team in place because that's already a cost, right? Which you cannot carry at the beginning. But you do want to convey capabilities. So you have access to resources, or you have individual team members, or the location itself is going to support you. So, to speak a little bit about team qualifications, even if only a few seconds, is important.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. Many times the character, the founders, is one of the key, if not the only asset of the early stage companies. I'd mention just a few things about myself because simply the time is precious here. However, how you present, what you say, how you say it will talk a lot, will say a lot about yourself, about how you approach your business idea, how you see into the future. So I wouldn't be worried about that too much. I think, you just by presenting and telling your story, you're already conveying a message about, who you are and your credentials.
So these were maybe two opinions. It's true. I mean, some presenters, they're able to sell it, right? But some investors will want that comfort, a bit of comfort. Who's with you? Who's backing you up? Do you have people to lean on?
So they really need assurance and for support system and all of this in case something,
Some investors will inquire, yes.
Yeah. Moving to the next question. What are some other opportunities I am missing to monetize or improve the financial returns of my business? You think?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
What are some other opportunities I'm missing to monetize or improve the financial returns of my business? I think that's going to be in the later run, but
what do you think, Linda?
I'd say, you would need to come to Bedayat, so we'll sit with you and work and identify those things. But to put it very briefly, it's all about the revenues and the cost. You need to see and dissect the revenue streams and see what potential new customers you can attract. Alternatively, new products to launch. So this, revenues on one side, and then there are costs on the other side. See how you can increase the revenues and you can reduce the cost. It's actually as simple as that because, the rest just trickle down to the profit line, which results in, in a return.
But so overall, Bedayat are here to assist.
Yeah, to be able to
because it's a very deep for them.
I'm not able to talk in more details about it because it's really business case specific.
Yeah. Okay, I think we still have two more questions. So, how do I measure differentiation among my competitors, and what advice do you have for standing out in my market?
I think it's important that whatever you're pitching, you need to understand the market, right? So sometimes that requires a lot of research. Sometimes it's just a quick research, but you need to be able to relate your business to the market. So it's important to know what's there, who's ahead of you, and how good is an equivalent product on the market or service on the market. And this doesn't have to be time consuming. I mean, but I would argue if you don't do it, then you're in trouble. If you're just so passionate about an idea, but you haven't really looked around to benchmark yourself, you are positioning yourself for failure, for potential failure. So a quick market research is important. You can also put out some surveys, monkey surveys. You can tap into different audiences if it's a university campus or you want government employees, or so define your segment so that you're able to also get the feedback that is needed early.
Mapping the competitors, the competitive landscape is the very first step. The second step is to ask yourself, what value added am I bringing to the market? One of the key concepts that we're working with at Bedayat is that we follow the lean startup approach, which is all about introducing your not so finished, like beta stage product to the market as soon as possible, just to gauge market demand and to get the numbers that you need to understand in order to either change the product or maybe remove it from the market completely. Because sometimes, if your market analysis or competitive analysis is not correct, and then you spend a lot of resources, a lot of time working on something that consumers don't want to have. So the next step after the mapping and the idea validation is just to test the product with minimal resources as soon as possible to see if it actually is working and if it's something that the market really wants to have, the consumers are ready to pay money for.
You also discussed a while ago about the unexpected cost. So the last question is, how do you design a go-to-market strategy on a super tight budget? Super tight. Yeah. Ms. Melda, Mr. Karim?
You'll probably have to decide on the cheapest distribution channels for your product. I'd say in this case, having an online business rather than a physical present is always a cheaper way. So see how you can, go about that. But other than that, really, I would need to know the business case in order to talk in a little bit broader terms.
Yeah, you also maybe want to consider an exit strategy. I think for any investment that you make, you need to have, okay, what's my exit? If my business goes south, how can I pivot, right? Or how do I shut down? Or how do I sell? Do I want to position myself to be acquired by someone else? So these are also good questions, to have an exit strategy in mind.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I think we're running out of time. So the two details from Ms. Milda is cheapest distribution market and the exit strategy from Mr. Karim. And I think that's it. We're going to wrap up. Anything you wanted to say, Mr. Karim?
Well, we want to say good luck to all the startups. Go for it. Most importantly, enjoy it and communicate to us your passion. And hopefully we will see more of you in the UAE in the months and the years to come.
Yeah, Ms. Milda.
I think that the fact that you already registered for this competition shows that you have some guts. You want to, take your message out. You want to get somewhere. This is already a big step because there's a lot of wannabes out there who are thinking and reading and never, coming to an action. So this is already an important step that you have taken. So just make sure that you get your message across. I hope that the tips that Karim has provided you with will help you along the way, and really good luck. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation to Mr. Karim and Ms. Melda and the team of Bedayat. And we would like to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation to the AIM team and the UAE Ministry of Economy for the opportunity to host the mentoring session, a support to AIM Startups virtual pitch competition. And the schedule for the startups in Abu Dhabi and Dubai is on 23rd of September at 10 o'clock a.m. and 2 o'clock p.m. respectively. And to register for free on www.aimcongress.com/roadshow/UAE/. And the annual investment meeting is still scheduled to take place in the fourth quarter of this year. And so for more updates on the latest developments of the annual investment meeting event, please stay tuned to www.aimcongress.com. And for everyone's information, a replay to today's events will be made available on the annual investment meeting YouTube channel in due course. Thank you once again, Mr. Karim and Ms. Vilda, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.